Carolyn.
Crosby.
Here.
Erica.
Here.
Jake.
Here.
Gail.
Here.
Dale is excused. Vito.
Here.
Me here. Craig.
Here.
Cherry. Not here yet.
Now, this is an open meeting and has been posted. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? A moment of silence to remember the victims of 9/11, please. Thank you. No citizens' comments tonight. Consent agenda. Approval of Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of August 28th, 2023. Without any to do. Motion passed. Recognitions, WASB recognition.
Yeah, just want to recognize that Dale received his level 1 school board through the WASB. We received notification of that.
Was there a test or anything?
I don't know all of the qualifications, but does require substantial engagement by a school board member in professional learning and such over the course of their term in office. We have the Wisconsin RTI Center PBIS recognition. We received that for all of our elementary schools and Parkview Middle School through their commitment to making sure that we work with our students and use data to drive our decisions around our students' academic and behavioral growth in schools. And then we just want to recognize Christine Bowden for her seat on the DPI Statewide AODA Advisory Council. So 3 recognitions this month.
Congratulations, Christine.
Ciao, Christine.
DPI, AODA Advisory Council, Joe?
That was Christine's.
Oh, congratulations, Christine. Neola policies.
So we have 4 policies in front of us tonight. These are just informational for you. Online, we posted what would look like a final draft of the policy. But in front of you, you have red line policies to show what was presented to us around suicide prevention in the first policy, 5350, suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention. So we bring this to you for your review. We can have this on the agenda next month. But what we are, is everybody able to find that at their place? What we are proposing is matching the policy with the supports and services that we would provide for students, both in a proactive educational format to inform them about good decision-making, about their mental health, about feelings and such, but then also what we would do should we run into an issue, and then the postvention, the supports that we would have in place for students and staff, and then our notifications to you as a board and then throughout our system to make sure, again, that we have proper communication and supports for students. So since this is just coming to you for information tonight, we can certainly entertain questions this evening on this, or if you have any to submit after the meeting, I'd be happy to entertain those then.
So on PO 5350, is that the
5350?
yeah, that's
Yep.
it. Yeah. There are no the green is what you're proposing, the red is what we'd be striking, so there's no green on. I'm color,
Yeah, so this is a replacement policy. So in 5350, in the document here, there is no green on it because the policy it's a replacement, it's a new policy. Anything that you see struck or in pink would be stuff that the district would not be considering in our recommendation to you for this policy.
So this policy is one that's Neola wrote, possibly?
This is their recommendations, but it's based off of our administrative review.
Okay, so this is the proposed.
Correct.
But the pink isn't what you...
The pink is what is struck from the policy, correct, in our recommendation to you.
There was no policy at all.
This is a replacement policy. So this is essentially new policy language that the board has not yet considered.
I'll talk to you later.
Good.
So is that the same? Are you gonna go through each one?
Yep, we'll go through each one. So if there are no immediate questions on this, we can have this agendized at a future meeting for approval. If there's anything you need clarified, feel free to ask.
Guess I'll clarify, Jerry, so this is what you got from them. You struck a bunch of stuff out.
Right.
And
So the way the Neola policies work, they provide us with a template. We review that template administratively, and then we come to you with our recommendation for policy language. Give that to you at a meeting. You can review that as a board the first time tonight, over the next couple of weeks until our next meeting. Then we would agendize it for action down the road. But Neola provides us kind of they're taking a topic, a policy area, in this case suicide prevention, and they're giving us their experience plus their legal review of what they would recommend to us. After that, then we would say, what does this mean for us in Mukwonago, and what would we recommend we put in policy language for you as a board then to consider?
Okay, so on the second page then, normally we would have those brackets and then we would choose the one we want. So are you recommending none of those? Because the whole line isn't crossed off, only the little check marks. So are you recommending we leave all three of them in? That's what I don't, it's just a different way of doing it. So I'm trying to figure out how you're doing it.
Sure. What you have in board docs under 5350 is what our recommendation is in the computer as far as what the clean language would look like.
So if we
What,
printed the one on the board docs,
so, yep, correct. The one that's
then that would be the one that
Added-
would be this with all the red out of it.
correct.
Okay.
So the one that was posted on Friday to the public is what our recommended language is. There was a request to see what the redlined version was, which is what you have at your table.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Okay. The next policy would be 6151, returned outstanding sale checks. Again, this was reviewed administratively. Mr. Cardhauser took an opportunity to review it. We went through, so at your table, again, you see what is the redlined version. This is what we get from Neola. What you see online under 6151 is what we are recommending then as a policy to the board. And this is really what we're doing for checks that we have written to someone, but yet have yet to be cashed.
all right, I'll cash the checks, sorry.
Cash the check.
Anybody else? Anybody have a question on that? Moving on.
Policy 6610, non-district supported student activity accounts. Again, this was reviewed by administration. At your table, again, you have the redlined version of the policy. Online, under 6610, you would see what then is recommended to committee for approval. And this is a policy that's being recommended to stay in line, and I would ask Tom to spell this out for us if we needed to, but the GASB 84, that has to deal with accounting and public funds and such.
So all four of these, we have none. These are all proposed new policies.
Their proposed new policies are replacement policies, yes.
Anybody? Any questions?
Is there a way, if there are replacement policies, then wouldn't under status it would say replacement instead of proposed?
I don't know if we have I don't know if we have a drop-down choice that says replacement. I would have to double check. No, we don't.
The title says it, Jerry.
Yep,
Replace. So just 5350,
Oh, yep,
the
yep,
title
yep,
says.
yep.
Okay, next show.
And again, online, you will see under 8121, personal background check for contracted services. You have the redlined option, and then you have what we are proposing. And this is really talking about contractors coming into our schools and what background check expectation we'd have of them before they began work. So if there are no questions, this was first stab at it. Feel free to reach out to me. We don't have community service fund on there. That was just placed. It wasn't posted publicly on the board.
All right, all good here? Student learning topics, school goals, presentations. Stephanie. And Rachel, sorry.
So tonight, we are fortunate. We have 2 of our schools over the next 4 board meetings. All 8 of our schools will present their school goals and what they're working towards for the school year. We'll then come back to you in June and do a final report out of what our progress was and where things are at. Please know we asked them to be abbreviated in their presentations. The work that our schools have done this summer could go on and on. We could spend hours on each school. So we're trying to give you the high-level overview tonight.
Can you go back one screen for me? Okay. So this year we set 2 goals of focus supported through our professional learning teams at section.
Rachel, can you talk into the microphone, please? Thank you.
All right.
Maybe it's not on. It's not on.
It is. It is. I'll talk louder. Okay. So this year we set 2 goals of focus that are supported through our professional learning teams at section. One is based on our behavioral data from the 22-23 school year, and we have an academic goal as well in math focused on problem-solving skills. Our first goal supports students in emotional regulation because we know that when students are feeling dysregulated emotionally, that they don't learn at high levels. So our first goal is our goal on student emotional regulation, and we call this a Tier 1 program that we're implementing. Tier 1 means it's a universal program, and it is for all of our students. And so in last school year, we had 124 major incidences. Major incidences are incidences that either occur frequently or are more intense situations, and those are generally managed by the office. Out of those 124 incidents, we had 52 playground major incidences, and the most common was physical altercation. So we felt that if we had a Tier 1 system for all students to help support them through their emotional regulation, that will provide consistency in language, practice, and action, it will help support the mental health of all students, as this has been a growing area of need based on our student data. So the action step for that is that we are implementing, again, that Tier 1 universal program called Zones of Regulation. This is not a new program, just a moment, yeah. This is not a new program to the district or to section, but it is a new that it is a Tier 1 that we're introducing it to all students. So all students will benefit from the program. Can you click on the link? Thank you. In Zones of Regulation, this is just an example of one of the posters that we use with our students. It helps them identify how they're feeling. So we have the blue, green, yellow, and red zone, and the goal is always to get students into that green zone. Sometimes with our littlest learners, they really struggle to identify using words on how they're feeling, and so that's why the pictures help to benefit our littlest learners. And our strategy is always to help our students get to that green zone. And by working through the zones of regulation, the students identify the zone. So for example, if they're in the blue zone, they may feel sick, not be feeling well. How can we help them? What strategies can we give them and supports to get them back into that green zone? So that is our zones of regulation. That's a Tier 1 program. We can also use it at a more intense or frequent level at the Tier 2 and Tier 3 level if students would need that. we would make that decision through our problem-solving team process at the school. We also had 52 major behaviors from our playground last year, so we knew we needed to do something about recess. So we revised our recess playground and expectations, and we aligned it to our PBIS program. We are in the process now of training all of our recess monitors on the new behavior expectations. We've also revised the playground footprint to support supervision and safety, and thank you to Buildings and Grounds for putting a football field out there for us. It has been fantastic and really helped with that footprint. We have heard nothing from the students by modifying that footprint. We also created playground supervision zones for our recess monitors, and then we reviewed all of our rules and expectations at our Hawks Habits Day last Friday, and then reviewing them again in our classes and also in our physical education classes. So for our second goal, we focused on math problem solving. We've actually stepped away at section from forward data, which is only giving us the kind of that end of year measurement. We wanted to set a goal that we could be responsive to at all checkpoints throughout the year. So while this is a specific goal around problem solving, we believe that the skills developed will have an impact on all of our math learning going forward. So our goal is that by the end of this school year, 100% of our students will demonstrate proficiency, which we've defined as a score of 3 or above as measured on our problem solving rubric. Thanks, Stephanie. We have 2 problem solving rubrics. We have a K2 and a 3-6. And you will notice on that rubric, we're looking at 3 particular areas: making sense of problems, representing the solution, and then accurately solving and checking. So there are actually 8 standards of math practice to align to our goal. We're gonna focus on those 3 directly related to problem solving, and our goal is that 100% of our students will meet or exceed that expectation by the end of the school year through multiple checks. So how we will do that is we are going to individually track our students on math practices standards 1, 4, and 6 multiple times through the year. And then we will align our teachers' professional development and our classroom instruction to be responsive to how our students are performing on that rubric. So if we find that they're struggling with attending to precision or mathematical modeling, we'll do some professional development with our teachers in hope that that transpires to the classroom through the instruction that they're delivering. And then also for our goal, we're excited to launch a new program at Section in collaboration with our ALP teacher and our 6th grade team. We are going to work with our ALP grade accelerated students in math, and they are going to be math mentors for some of our younger learners. And so we really see this as a win-win, as our ALP students will have an opportunity for some leadership, while our other students will have an opportunity to get more support with math through games, fact practice, one-on-one, and small groups. Those are our 2 goals at Section. Any questions?
So Rachel,
Go ahead.
how is this different from what you've been doing in the past?
Well, we have not had a behavioral regulation specific goal. We started by implementing PBIS about 3 years ago. So our behavioral goal, this is kind of that next step, really honing in on the data and making some revisions to our practice based on the data that we've seen about student behavior. Like, that's why we notice that the playground is an area that we need to focus on, so we're attending to that specifically. As for our math goal, we have in the past always used forward exam data, which again does give us information about how our students are performing and performing against standards, but we wanted something that we could collect data on throughout the year to try to be more responsive to how our students are performing in math, particularly in problem solving, because we know that's an area where our students struggle. Then that's also aligned to that algebraic thinking piece that we know our students need as they move on from section. answer that question?
Thank you. Yep.
Okay.
Are the sixth graders in that ALP program doing like after-school tutoring, or is that during the school day? or-
No, so we have a 75-minute math block at section, and our sixth grade students start their day early at Parkview Middle School.
Ah.
So during that block of time, they have an opportunity to do their homework, review, study for tests. But that also leaves them some additional time. So on the days when the students have that time from having their homework done, that we're going to assign them to classrooms to work with students.
That's super cool. I like that.
Thank you. We're hoping that it goes well. We will likely implement that in November. We're planning to use the month of October to train the students on how to work with the younger learners. So they're not just giving answers, but really supporting the learners in their work.
Are you going to be using the FAST data as well?
We always use the FAST data, absolutely. Generally focusing on that 3 times per year as well. But as far as our math goal is concerned, we're really going to focus on that rubric so we can be responsive to the pieces that we're looking for in those 3 standards.
Can you walk me through the zones of regulation?
Sure.
What that, like, how do you use it? What does it mean? I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. Zones of regulation is it's a behavior support program for students that really helps them identify what zone they're feeling. And there are lessons that go along that we teach the students, and we're going into classrooms the first 4 weeks of the school year to teach them the program. So the first is just identifying the zone. So if a student is feeling frustrated, they might identify that as being in the yellow zone, and then we give them strategies that they can use when they're frustrated to get back to that green zone. We also go through lessons like size of the problem. So we give students examples of a problem. Well, how big is this problem really, and how can you address the problem? It's not, maybe this argument on the playground really isn't a level 10 with a friend. Maybe it's a 3. How can we resolve it? So it's giving students tools and strategies to try to make some of those decisions for themselves on how they're feeling so they can get back into a place where they're feeling good, and we call that the green zone.
So then how does a student implement that, say, is it meant to communicate with a teacher? Are they supposed to say, like, I'm in the red zone right now?
It's meant to communicate with a teacher, with any staff member. So all of our staff are have been trained on zones of regulation. The students are getting lessons to start the year in zones of regulation. And so sometimes when a student is dysregulated, one of the most challenging things is you really can't have a conversation or communicate with them, but they sure can point to a poster or a picture to identify how they're feeling. It looks different in kindergarten, certainly, than it does in 6th grade, but it's a universal program, and everyone is using the same language, which is so important to be consistent in that practice.
And then based on whatever zone they may be in, is there some sort of action plan in place to help them regulate then?
There's an action plan for all of those. So some, and again, that looks different kindergarten through 6th grade. Some classrooms have like a calming corner. We have Chillville in our building, which is our sensory space where kids can always take a break. It's open and available to all students. That would be an example for someone who might be in the yellow or approaching that red zone. A lot of different strategies, and the students are being taught what those are based on the zone that they're in.
Do we find that any of the older students are abusing some of that and going to Chillville just because they just want to get out of something?
Not yet.
Okay.
Chillville is always supervised. Chillville is always supervised, and so they might try that, but we're on to them pretty quickly.
Okay. I'm done now. Thanks.
Vito?
Why math?
Why math?
Yeah, if you guys are putting a focus on math, why'd you pick that?
So for math, I mean, math is an area of focus too for the district as we're going through our math pilots, but we really wanted to be specific as we looked at our math data. It is pretty strong at section, but the area that we really need to focus on is that multi-step problem solving, having kids have that self-efficacy to not give up on solving a problem. Some of the work we did initially was there's 15 reasons why students struggle with math problem solving, and what we went through and identified those, and we found specific trends at section for why students are struggling through problem solving, complex problem solving. The forward exam, many of the questions on the forward exam are specifically related to problem solving. They're multi-step. So we felt that was the most appropriate entry point as we're looking at math.
Is there a goal? So, so we're testing at X, and we're shooting for X and a timeline for that?
Well, for the goal that we have here, our goal is on our problem-solving rubric as we collect that data throughout the year. We want them to meet that standard of proficiency on the 3 math practice standards. So that's our goal, and we have it at 100%.
Are we meeting the goal, or are we falling the goal of the? Are we falling short of? I mean, are we currently falling short of the goal where we can see a noticeable improvement?
We're not falling short of the goals. We haven't started collecting the data on this specific piece yet.
Okay.
There are 2 standards on the forward exam from this last year that are focused specifically on problem solving, and those are an area that we need additional work around.
Is there a rubric for the behavior?
Gail, can you talk to the microphone, please?
I'm trying. Is there a rubric for the behavioral goal that you have? Do you have a rubric to go with that to help kids to know?
We do. We have a PBIS matrix, and that is
Okay.
aligned also to our new recess matrix.
So you can
and
show the kids
expectations,
that's there.
so we can walk them right through it. But what we're really using to collect data on the progress of that goal is our number of major incidences that occur throughout the school year, specifically focusing on that playground piece. So yes, we have 2 rubrics. Both of them are aligned.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else? Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things in between kind of presentations. I think it's a good time also for us to discuss some systems things that we're working on that you're going to hear throughout the goals. So in this case, we are really working as a system to build more formative assessments at the building level. So we're not a system that waits for the forward exam to come out or the ACT to come out to say, oh, we achieved our goal, or we didn't make it this year. To put way more formative little checks in places. And so you're gonna hear that from quite a few of our principals. It's something that we've definitely been talking about as a system. Because yes, the forward exam can tell us, but it's once a year and we can't wait for it and then be excited or not be at that point. Secondly, we encourage our principals to peek into each other's goals throughout the year. So last year, there were 3 or 4 times during the year that we had discussions as an administrative group about what everybody was doing and how that was going. So Rolling Hills actually implemented the zones of regulation, and they would credit that to a huge drop in their major incidents last year. So Ron won't talk about that. We've moved on from the goal, but it's a place where one system is learning from another system, hoping to replicate some results. And then the last thing is, that you're going to see from our elementary schools specifically, we have high scores. We're a high-scoring elementary district at this point. And so Rachel's a great example of the building really looking to see, okay, to take that next leap to a math goal. We have strong math scores in general. We're really gonna have to dig into something like problem solving in order, which might seem like, what, just problem solving out of all of math? But Rachel and her team have a firm belief that that's the next place to really drill into to take our math up another level. And you're gonna hear that from our elementary schools, them really drilling in on something specific because we are high achieving enough. They really are digging down into their data and looking for those places that we can make improvements.
Hi, Luke.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for inviting me. Luke Spielman, principal at Parkview Middle School. Thanks for having us, Rachel and I, this evening. I'm going to start the presentation here by just sharing some of the work our students and staff have put in over the last couple of years. I'm kind of just to lay the foundation for what our goals are for this year. So over the last couple of years, our staff has put in a lot of time working on curriculum revisions in math, English, language arts, and social studies. As you know, once you hit the secondary level, our teachers tend to be more focused on a single content area, unlike the elementary level where teachers are are pulled between multiple content areas, and at times they can only focus on one at a time. Since ours only teach one at a time, it allows them to really focus in the moment. You'll notice out of the 4 core content areas, science is the one that is left out. Science is coming up here in the very near future, as you probably are already aware. Our teams have put in a lot of time working on aligning instruction and assessments to standards. We focused on incorporating vocabulary and writing skills as forward scores come out here in the coming weeks and months. We are extremely proud of the results of our students on vocabulary and writing skills over the last few years. We've seen growth on the TDA, the text-dependent analysis portion of the forward exam. Just a few years ago, our students were scoring, I don't say this proudly, but we had about 8% of our students that were proficient or scoring a 3 or 4 on that level. Ben's in the room and might correct me, but I think this past spring we were 78% proficient, and that's a growth from 8% to 78% in a span of about 5 years. So I credit the work that our staff has put into that. We've utilized assessments to analyze student learning and adjust and differentiate instruction where appropriate. That one kind of connects to the second one up there, that once you're clear on what you want students to learn, you're able to differentiate and make sure that students are meeting what you want them to do. And then the last one, we've established collaborative time to discuss instructional methods, analyze student work, and write common assessments. We've built time into our schedule for our core content teams to discuss teaching and learning. It seems like a novel concept, but we really feel that we have some great teachers in the building and some great knowledge in the building. And when you give teachers time and have them focus on the right conversations, we see great results for kids. And I want to talk to you next, I guess, about what those great results over the last 3 years look like. Our staff deserves a ton of credit for the numbers listed up here. I just want to go through some of these data points with you. Our science scores in the last 3 years, that is the green line, have increased 16.2% over the last 3 years. Our social studies scores in the yellow line there have increased by 8.2%. Our math scores have increased by 10.9% over the last 3 years. That is the red line there. One point I will point out with the math scores as compared to the other content areas, our math scores, and this goes to your question, Vito, to Rachel, our math scores are still below where they were pre-COVID. So although we're pretty excited that they've gone up 10.9% in the last 3 years, unfortunately we're still 0.8 below where we were pre-COVID. So based on that trend line, I'm excited about this year because I think we'll get back over that hump, but unfortunately we're not there yet in math. English is the opposite. English, we have gone up 17.4% in the last 3 years, and that number is well above where we were pre-COVID. So we're excited about all 3 of those, but math is probably the one that, of the 3 content areas that we still want to really spend some more time focusing on. So that leads us to our goal for this year. Goal number 1, students will have access to a guaranteed and viable curriculum to ensure high-quality learning experiences for all students. What that means, I guess in layman's terms, is that we expect as students enter a class, regardless of what hour a student is in or what teacher a student has had, that the learning experiences are similar for all kids. Kids are expected to learn the same content, regardless of who the teacher is, regardless of what the class period is, and that those learning expectations are high. That doesn't necessarily mean that if you walk into 2 classrooms at the same time that they're going to be teaching it the exact same way. We certainly value the art of teaching and understand that teachers' personalities play into the way content is presented. But in terms of what we expect students to learn, that is the exact same in every single class. And I think it's resulted in really amazing conversations amongst our staff as staff challenge each other, like why do kids have to learn that? And when people are able to justify why something is important, we kind of get to that denominator of truly the important stuff, and students are learning or focused on what is truly valuable there. So our teachers asked 3 questions, I guess 4, but we're going to focus the 3 here. What do we want students to know and be able to do? How do we know they know it and are able to do it? So that's kind of the assessment one. And then how will we respond if students don't learn it? So if students are struggling, we've taught it, it's not okay to just move on to the next unit and say, oh, they should have learned it. We have a responsibility as staff, and our staff has embraced that responsibility to help close that gap and help students get caught up. So action steps to support this goal. We're going to develop common formative and summative assessments and adjust instruction based on student outcomes. That goes back to what Stephanie said a few minutes ago. Those summative assessments are really the assessments that you would consider to be like end of chapter or end of unit. Stephanie brought up forward exam and not just depending on end of the year forward data, and Rachel did too. The idea of formative assessments really means before the summative assessment. So let's say after a couple days or midway through the unit, what type of assessments can we give students to determine whether or not they are meeting or whether or not they're at the level that we expect them to be at. Because we don't want to wait till the end of the unit to find out that the student's not getting it. That's too late in our teacher's mind. We want to know sooner rather than later so that we can address the problem and help students get caught up. Second one, identify flexible temporary student groups and can provide in-class differentiated support. So again, as we provide those assessments to students or we administer those assessments to students, we then have a responsibility to do something different based on that. So if there's a group of 10 of us in the room and the data shows that we're all learning at different levels, we would expect our teachers to help differentiate that curriculum and enrich the students' experiences who need that enrichment and help the students get caught up who are falling behind. And the last data point goes to Cherry's question earlier about FAST data. FAST is an assessment that we have utilized K-8, not K-8, 3-8? K-8, sorry, I'm not as familiar with the elementary levels. K-8 in the district for the past few years. This year, Parkview is moving away from FAST assessments to a different assessment called the iReady diagnostic. iReady is just another company that provides a test, but the iReady diagnostic test is being used by other neighboring districts such as Muskego and Burlington, and they've seen great results from students in terms of the data that it gives teachers. It takes a little bit longer for students to take, but their data that they're getting from it is then helping teachers change their instruction, because once you know more about what kids are learning, you're able to address or change instruction based on that. So tomorrow, students are taking the FAST math test for the first time. So iReady, not FAST. Thank you, Stephanie. We're no longer doing FAST, but we're switching to iReady starting tomorrow. Thank you. Our second goal up there is students and Parkview staff will strengthen relationships with the school community. Just a few notes about that goal. One of the challenges that I think you already know because you're working on addressing it with me is that one of the challenges of Parkview is we are a 7-8 only building. And we don't want to be just a stepping stone for students or a revolving door that kids come in and then leave. We really, as students enter our building, or families, I'll say, enter our building, we want to be a place that is meaningful. We want the learning experiences to be meaningful. We want parents to be partners in education with students or with staff. And for that to happen, those relationships need to be strong. Just some things that we use to measure that along the way is we ask students those questions, right? Like, you are new to this building, so at the end of this month, we'll say, you're new to this building, how's your transition into Parkview going? Or likewise, you're leaving this building, how's your experience been? Likewise, we ask families similar questions. Some families have shared with us in the past that although they have a pretty good understanding of what's happening in the building, for those of you that have secondary children, your children don't always come home and share a lot of information about what's going on in class. So how can we as a staff do a better job of sharing information about what's going on in class? How can we do a better job of sharing positive communication about how children are doing in classes? So those are some of the things that we're looking to do a better job of doing, because when we know that those relationships are strong and that we treat parents as partners, we tend to see students grow at a much faster rate. Action steps we plan on taking this year: we're going to gather feedback from families through surveys and use data to identify areas of improvement and track progress over the time. I will give you just a quick example. We had open house on maybe August 29th, if that date sounds right, and we sent families a survey after that. And the top two things that we received for feedback, I was hoping Dale was here tonight because he was present as a parent. But the two things that we heard from feedback, which also impact you, are that our building was very crowded, which is a good problem to have, but also a thing that we're trying to address for referendum. And number two, the building was extremely hot. Those were the two things that we heard from feedback. But we also know the chiller was down, so that was part of the reason why the building was hot. But a need for a new building. Number two on that list, provide opportunities for students to provide feedback on their perceptions of Parkview and collect input for areas of improvement. We do that through a variety of ways. In the past few years, we've had lunch with students, obviously just informal conversations with students. As I said before, we ask students about their connections that we have. We have some wonderful student leadership opportunities in our building. Just last week on our very first day, we have web leaders, which we have 100 8th graders who give up their last day of summer to come in and welcome the 7th graders. That has a huge impact on our transition to start the year. And then the third bullet point up there is schedule time for teachers to communicate with families regarding student progress. Unfortunately, I think over time we see in schools that teachers work extremely hard, and at the end of the day, we don't always take time. Just like we don't take time for ourselves, I think we don't take enough time to send positive communication home to families who deserve that too. So as a leadership team in our building, that is one of the goals that we've set for our staff this year, is trying to make more time to share some of that positive news, because we're extremely proud of all the positive news we have, but unfortunately we don't emphasize that enough. So we want to do a better job this year of communicating that with families. I believe that is all. What questions do you have for me?
So forward exam testing, good to see the trends, obviously, but the one that sticks out is social studies in 2022. Do we know what happened there?
So that's a really good question, Jake. I don't have very, one thing that's unique about social studies and science, let me actually take that answer back a step. With English and math, as you probably know, students take it every single year. So it's the exact, so when I look at kids that are Rachel's students in 6th grade, they become our students in 7th grade, our students in 8th grade, and then they go to the high school. What's unique about social studies and science is they do not take it every year. So those are a different group of kids every single year. So that's 60.4, if I'm looking at yellow, 60.4 is a different group of kids in the 58.3, which is a different group of kids in the 68.6. So it's not always like, in that case, it's not kids became less intelligent from year to year. It's a different group of kids, which makes it harder to necessarily tell. I will share with you that our staff every year, Ben helps us a lot with, when we get those forward results, looking at what parts of the forward exam students are struggling in, and then reinforcing those units. So Ben gave an example today. He met with our science team, and he looked at, you still have been, you're looking at water cycles, right? Is that what it was? Water cycles, and our students hadn't scored as high as what we wanted. But when we know that data, then the following year we tend to address it. But yeah, those are different students, which makes it harder. Do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you, Luke.
Thanks.
Just to emphasize, I mean, we do know this, but with a referendum coming too, the middle school does have a definite challenge that we don't have in the rest of their buildings. Super proud of the data and the poll that they've done the last couple years, but we know it to be true that when students go through transition from one building to the next, like from 6th grade to 7th grade in our building, that math and English data go down, and then when they do the transition between 8th grade and freshman year, the data goes down. And so the middle school has this unique place in our district with 2 years to get the kids comfortable, feeling safe, and having relationships with adults. So they start learning again, so their scores go up. So we're not seeing really what would be a 3-year trend from 7th to 8th to 9th, the drop, which we have seen in our data before. The middle school has done a great job at starting to change that trajectory. And we think a huge part of it is the movement towards this guaranteed and viable curriculum, which the middle school is intelligently continuing.
And mark your calendars for November, when I'll bring the rest of the data with you, and we'll talk about that too. But today, it's summer school on a nice September afternoon or evening. I've got some data for you around our numbers there, and some really positive things to share with you from our summer programming this year as well. So you have a memo that was in board docs tonight, and I'll go through this, not in a lot of detail here because a lot of it's just informational. So on the front page of that memo would be the different offerings that we have this year, along with the grade ranges and the dates. 2 new programs on our docket this year would include Summer Marching Band. Now, that's not a new program per se, but we brought that in under the umbrella of summer school this year. And then the Mukwonago Summer Musical, which was a program that provided students with an opportunity at the end to perform on stage at the PAC. It's kind of a cabaret-style show. So really excited about the range of offerings that we have here, and that we continue to grow those offerings from some pretty humble beginnings that we had not too many years ago. If you go to page 2, you'll see some data about our enrollment numbers. I cannot promise to you that I will be able to continue in future years and keep talking about this climb. Eventually, we will run out of students that are not attending summer school, but it wasn't this year. This year, we saw another small gain in our district summer adventures program, and that is our K-8, kind of our big program that's at the high school. For students, it's really 4K through grade 8. We saw that small increase there. Eagleville is kind of at the top of their capacity anyway, and so there's a little bit of decline there. I think that's statistical noise. It does remain a very popular program, just basically parent schedules, kids that are involved in that or maybe have already attended. So a small decline there, but an increase in our summer adventures program. Looking below, you can see our high school numbers as well, and there's basically 3 different categories of summer school we have there. We have our online credit classes, which would be your online personal finance, online physical education 1 and 2, and online health. So those are really very popular amongst our incoming freshmen, current freshmen, incoming sophomores, essentially, as they try to take some of the electives that will allow them to free up their schedules once they get into in-person during the regular school year. That is a number that increased pretty significantly, and that was a lot to do with our personal finance. We saw a big increase there. That is a number that we want to see increase from year to year. The next 2 are not. Those are our credit recovery, and so we don't always like to see that, but we have to be realistic. We have a need. So when students fail a class, we definitely want to give them an opportunity to make that credit back up during the summer. And so we offer 2 versions. We offer the in-person credit recovery. This year, that was only Biology 1 and Algebra 1. We lost an English 9 teacher kind of last minute, and we're not able to replace them. And so those kids that were eligible to take English 9 as credit recovery slid into our next version, which is the online credit recovery. We offer that at Mukwonago High School. I want to make that very clear. This isn't just they get to take this wherever they want online. They do come to Mukwonago High School. They just take it through a computerized program, which allows us to personalize the content that they take in order to make sure that we're best fitting their needs and still getting that credit recovered. Questions on any of those enrollment numbers on page 2 there? Page 3, I start to break down that enrollment in the other programs, which we call our summer camps. And you can see we had increases in each and every one of the returning programs. Some were small increases, but increases nonetheless. That Jumpstart Band and Orchestra has an asterisk because we're still finalizing our enrollment from that and the attendance and gathering that information. So it might not be as high as 174. It might be a little bit less than that when I come back to you for 2024 and report on those numbers. Our new programs there, you can see 46 in summer musical experience and 68 marching band camp. That 46 in the musical experience, I think we're excited to have a number like that in a program of that nature. It's not something for everybody, but for those kids, it was a really meaningful and exciting experience. We heard a lot of very positive feedback. And just a couple of other key points I want to highlight there. And first of all, I'm not going to list all of the names there, but I know I come to you and report on summer school annually. I tend to be the face of that program, but we could not have this success without the help of a lot of people in our district. And so you can see the names of our staff there that are helping coordinate some of these different programs or serve in the day-to-day operations of our programming. And that goes without saying, all of the district teachers that we have that program as well. Could not do it without them, and we are very, very thankful for their support. I mentioned the new programs. This year, our staffing really stabilized. That's always going to be one of our challenges. Teachers want their time off in the summer. They need their time off in the summer. We want them to have that. So we are very fortunate to have who we are able to get. This year, we had 16 out-of-district teachers that we had to hire, down 4 from last year, which is a positive. I think that's probably just going to be our new normal, probably having about 16 to 20 out-of-district teachers, and that's a good place to be. We had 3 student teachers that stayed on from spring and taught with us for summer school. I think we actually hired one of them full-time after that as well, if I'm not mistaken. So it's always a nice place for them to serve as a tryout. One place that was a challenge for us that we were not able to overcome was middle school art. We, for the last couple of years, had some Milwaukee public school teachers that had come and done our art classes. This year they chose not to return. We could not fill those positions either internally or externally. They're unique positions to fill. I think we would have had another 40 to 50 kids probably added if we could have filled those. So that'll be an area that we really double down on and try to fill those positions for next year, because we know those are popular offerings for a segment of our middle school students. And one other bullet point that I added this year that's a kind of a new data point. I've seen some other neighboring districts that highlight the total number of students that attend summer school from their district. And this year, it looks like we had about 2,100 unique students. So not duplicates, I'm stripping out all the duplicates, but 2,100 unique students that attended summer school. That is about 42% of our regular school year enrollment. That's a crazy high number. That compares, I went back to 2017 when I took this over and started coordinating this, where we are at 1,184. That's an increase of about 177%. So I am thrilled, I'm thankful for the work of our teachers. We could not do it without them. And the support of the board, Tom from a financial standpoint, making sure that we have what we need. We really have a lot of great things working together for a lot of success here. And then at the bottom, tentative dates for next year. Questions?
Nice job, Ben. I know it's a ton of work and
Thanks, Ben.
it's much appreciated by all the parents. I know that.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad we're able to support them, and I appreciate it, so, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so next is just a point of discussion and really to inform you on something that we're starting discussions on, and it goes back to actually the slide that still sits up there, and the information about the math data, and that is that Parkview Middle School went to a AB block schedule during the 2020-2021 school year. We have kept that schedule at the middle school because the teachers and parents who were surveyed after that year voted to keep that going, thought it was a good learning model for the students. But as we look at our data, we do have some concerns about our math scores since that has been put into place. And so we are going to be engaging in some discussions at the middle school regarding how could we up our math minutes even before we get, because we joke we need t-shirts for everybody right now that says, if the referendum passes, when we get a new middle school. But with something like our math data, I just don't believe that we can wait. Our math teachers at the middle school have loudly said they don't know if we can wait. And so we want to engage in some conversations about how we could add math minutes to the students in 7th and 8th grade.
Would that start this school year, or would that start for the following school year?
We're looking for it to start the following school year. Any questions or concerns or anything you want us to be aware of, as we will update you obviously as we go, but we just didn't want you to hear about that somewhere else.
I like it. I'm all for it.
Perfect, thank you. Next thing, I had let you know back in July when I brought all of the new course approvals that unfortunately timing doesn't always match up. We did have our last of our PLTW courses in this sequence that our teachers were trained on in late August. And then they needed a little bit of time to turn around what they had learned for 40 hours in a week and put it into curriculum documents. And so I am bringing for any discussions or questions and then final approval at the end of September at our board meeting, the class for the biomedical innovations. Any questions or concerns? Okay, so that'll come back as an action item in September. And then also bringing just an update for you information. We talk a lot about literacy at the elementary level, which anytime you want things to change as a system, you start with the earliest learners because that's how you start to bring it up. But I did want the board to know that we do have some steps for our littlest learners and then some steps in our literacy world for grades 3 on up that we are taking part in this year. We have attended a few things or brought in consultants the last few years from CISA 6, who has an incredibly successful literacy component to their CISA. We are partnering with them for 3 things this year. One of them is a 4K program. Now that we are doing full day in a couple sites, obviously we want to make sure that we're maximizing what our littlest learners are are partaking in. And so Colleen Hoyne is going with our 4K teachers and our early childhood educators, engaging in practices around shared reading. The thing that we like about working with CESA 6 a lot is not only do we do learning sometimes up in CESA 6, or they come to us, but also then they also provide a consultant that continues to work with us throughout the year. And so that's been a really powerful model for us at this point in the district. We're also engaging with them. We've been talking about the science of reading. Michelle was with you to talk about that a few months ago, K2, but we're also starting to dig in now to what are we gonna learn 3-5 about that science of learning that may indicate things that we need to shift in our intermediate grades at the elementary level. So we're going to be engaging in a workshop that CESA 6 has put together, and also have a consultant visiting us around the science of reading in grades 3-5. And then finally, I am going to take a group of teachers in the district, 7-10 teachers, I would say. We are going to be going and doing a secondary literacy workshop on when we end up with students in our system starting in 7th grade who are still struggling readers. What are we doing for them? It is a place that we do need to grow as a district, and so we're really going to dig into that this year. So just wanted to let you know that those contracts we've engaged in with CESA 6. Questions there at all?
Will there be any of the 6th grade teachers in that 7th grade group, just with the forethought of?
So that's a great question, Carolyn. We are not at this point because we're kind of in this great little limbo world. There's times that we're going to start to yank the 6th grade teachers into 7-8 discussions, and there's times that we're saying they've got a lot going on. We're really concentrating on math pretty hard at the 6th grade level, so we're going to bring back as a district to that team what we're learning, but we're really letting them dig in much more to math at this point this year.
Thanks, Steph.
Yep.
Graduation update. Mr. Darren.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here. I think you all have a memo in your packet on graduation update. I wanted to go over just a little bit because I know for some of the new board members, or for anybody who has not had anybody graduate in the last decade or so, just where we have been with graduation and where I'd like to direct us. We've spent the last decade or so using American Family Field, or Miller Park before that, for our graduation ceremonies. For most of that time, it was very useful for us and useful for the Brewers. Typically, we have had to wait until October to find out possible graduation dates because of the Major League Baseball schedule. In the last couple of years, they have had that out actually a lot earlier than they used to. So the next year's schedule actually came out in August, which is great for us, but what American Family Field has also done is taken those weekends when the Brewers are on the road and tried to schedule concerts. And so last year, as it says in the memo here, it was not available until June 22nd, and in 2024, it is not available, it's not available until June 22nd in 2024 for graduation, and last year it was not available until June 24th. The cost of using American Family Field has also gone up dramatically. For many years, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $17,000 to $18,000 to rent out the cost of the field and personnel. And we would recoup that money by selling extra tickets to families. So each of the families got 4 free tickets, and if they wanted to bring as many people as they could spend $10 per ticket. The cost is over $30,000 right now for a graduation ceremony at American Family Field, which means if we do pursue that in the future, we are going to have to raise our extra ticket price substantially to pay for the cost of that. Ironically enough, for the last couple of years, 2020, 2021, and last year, we did have the ceremony at MHS. In 2020, we had it on the football field, and in 2021 and 2023, due to weather, we had to move it inside to the West Gym, where each family got 4 tickets. And that's about capacity for our West Gym. If you think of the 400 graduates on the floor, about 1,600 plus or so in the West Gym. That's about the capacity that we have. So my proposal moving forward is to always have it in the West Gym. It takes weather completely out of the equation. We have to make a call. If we have a 2 p.m. ceremony, we have to make the call about 9 a.m. On whether or not we're going to have it. Last year it was pretty easy because at 2 o'clock and actually through the rest of the day it was rainy and barely 50 degrees, so that turned out to be nice. But weather is always an issue in June. Weather's always an issue in Wisconsin, but especially in June it can be 45 degrees or it can be 95 degrees. And so really to take the whole weather equation out, I'd like to permanently move it inside the West Gym. We would give 4 free tickets to each graduate, and then 2 free tickets to each graduate for an overflow crowd in front of our PAC to watch our live stream event in there. Graduation for 2024 is set for June 9th. So that's the update. And I will say, I think families want to know as early as possible. You know, they want to know how many people they can bring, where it's going to be, when it's going to be. And when we were using American Family Field, I mean, there were times when we would get to January and February and not have a decision quite yet. And I've already received calls back in the summer if we had a graduation date. So I think families will be okay having it inside as long as they know well in advance.
I agree with you. This has not been the most popular choice over the years. We always do the survey. Everybody likes the stadium. I think the cost makes it prohibitive. And if you weren't aware last year when it was supposed to be outside, am I correct that everybody was given 6 free tickets? But then when the weather turned bad, then they only had 4. So then they had to decide which family members to uninvite the morning of. So I think it's probably just easier for everybody.
Yeah,
to know.
we did, when we were out on the football field, we did give 6 tickets, but we gave 4 blue ones and 2 gold ones. And if we did have to move it inside, only the blue colored ones would be valid.
But the gold ones could be the PAC.
Yes, yep, exactly. Yep.
Makes sense. Anybody else? Nope. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks. Just a quick shout out to Bill Plant, one of my associate principals who does the legwork really each year for graduation, and so just wanted to make sure everybody knew that he's an important part of this as well. Thanks. I'll see you back here in a half hour, 45 minutes.
Okay, so in August, the board approved the community survey. We had a chance to review the survey, look at the questions. We took feedback in the motion. It was kind of pending a final presentation, which we're doing tonight as to what was on the community survey. So Tom and I will go through the survey. What we want to point out to you is the feedback that you gave us, and then where it sits in the survey, so that you saw that cycle of feedback is there from what you asked for to be there and present. Some things we just weren't able to accomplish. I mean, surveys there's a certain length that you can send out and expect people to respond to, which is why we're continuing to work on our website development. But Tom, if you want to take it from here, and we can both go back and forth and kind of point out where some of the feedback fit in.
All right, so I'll walk through this here and read it for the group here. So dear families and community members, we are pleased to report that the Mukwonago Area School District continues to perform at a high level academically. Based on the most recent state report cards, MASD schools continue to exceed expectations. At the same time, the MASD property tax mill rate is one of the lowest in Waukesha County. We are proud of this rare combination of high academic performance coupled with responsible spending. Over the past year, we began planning for the next phase of our facility master plan. To help establish priorities, the district held 4 community meetings this spring. Participants studied needs at each school and identified the most pressing issue is at Parkview Middle School, which is nearly 70 years old. Before we move any further, we need to understand the priorities of our taxpayers through this community-wide survey. Your feedback is kept confidential. All right, so I'll move past that gray box. And this area as well, as we have not changed anything in here. So survey, I'll highlight that survey results will be reported at a board meeting on November 27th. We'll likely be able to know from the data prior to the 27th, like a few weeks before that, where things are at. So once we have a substantial number of responses, we'll be able to start working with school perceptions to say, what are the immediate results suggesting? So we'll know in advance, but on the 27th is when we'll deliver final results as to where the community came in with the survey. Any questions so far? Okay. Background information, facility master plan, phased approach. Since 2014, the district has regularly reviewed the facility master plan. Implementing the plan in phases spreads cost over time and makes it more affordable for taxpayers. The next phase, phase 2 of the plan, focuses on Parkview Middle School and creating more space for our 4-year-old kindergarten. All right. Project financing. The board has taken the opportunity to refinance and prepay debt from past building projects. This has saved more than $2.8 million in interest expenses. These actions will reduce the property tax impact of any new spending. The district is on pace to be debt-free by the 27-28 school year. So this graph here is our projected future debt levy with no new referendum. So this just simply highlights what we have levied for referendum debt in the past year in 22-23 and what we are projecting for 23-24 and beyond. This projects a level 5.5 approximately $1 million levy for debt each and every year going into the future. The turquoise area is our levy for our minimum debt payment. So we have to levy that amount each and every year to stay current with our debts. The gray solid area represents the additional levy that we use to prepay future debt. And then that diagonal turquoise area is what we are prepaying ahead of schedule. So you can see really there's a small sliver there on the 27-28 school year. So in the fall of 27-28, with no new referendum, we will be debt-free at that time. So we cleaned up this graph here and we tried to really spell out clearly what those 3 areas are for the levy needed for the minimum debt payment. The gray area is the additional levy for prepayment of future debts. And then that, again, that turquoise area with the diagonal lines is what is being prepaid ahead of schedule. I'm looking for your feedback there. Does that seem to make sense? We good? All right. All right, facility challenges. Last year, Bray Architects completed a district-wide facility assessment. Based on this study, the most pressing issues are at Parkview Middle School, built in 1954, and creating spaces for 4K students. So again, these are the list of facility challenges. Some of the major building systems, including plumbing, heating, ventilation, and electrical, have exceeded their service life and need to be replaced. Sections of the roof need to be replaced. Exterior bricks requires maintenance and windows are inefficient. Classroom floors, lighting, ceilings, and casework need to be replaced. Hallways are narrowed and congested, and the overall layout of the building is inefficient. Student pickup, drop-off is congested, creating safety concerns. Classrooms are small and lack space for student collaboration. Technical education, hands-on learning areas are too small. The kitchen and cafeteria are congested with long service lines. Some areas do not comply with the American with Disabilities Act. More gym space is needed for physical education and community programming. The choir and band areas are too small to meet current enrollment lack proper acoustics, and are difficult to access and supervise because of their location. Our elementary schools serve grades pre-K through 6 and are nearing capacity. The district is recommending moving all 6th grade students to the middle school. This shift will free up space at each elementary school and provide 6th grade students with more access to higher level course offerings. So this area here, Cherry, is the best, based on your feedback from the last time we reviewed this, to concisely, in a condensed manner, convey what we are hoping to explain to the community. At the elementary schools, additional age-appropriate spaces are needed to provide more 4-year-old kindergarten programming on site. Currently, the district leases this space from private organizations. Big Bend Elementary student pickup and drop-off is congested, creating safety concerns. So again, this is the basic yes-no checkpoint. To address these facility needs, local voters would need to approve a capital referendum. Would you support the district pursuing a referendum to fund the next phase of the facility master plan? Yes, no, or I'm not sure. Any feedback so far? Any questions, concerns? All right. Recommended plan, Parkview Middle School project. The district developed several options to renovate Parkview Middle School and expand it to serve 6th grade students. The community focus group studied each option but ultimately recommended replacing the school. The estimated cost to renovate is $85 million, which is 88% of the cost of building a new school. Remodeling options would be limited because of the existing layout and the number of load-bearing walls. The renovation would need to be completed over multiple years while school is in session, which can negatively impact teaching and learning. A renovation would take approximately 1 year longer than building new one and could have unforeseen expenses. Traffic congestion would be difficult to improve given the current layout. The proposed plan would be to build a new middle school and demolish the existing building. The middle school would have capacity to serve 1,200 students in 6th through 8th grade. Current configuration is 7th, 8th grade, creating more space at the elementary level. Classrooms/labs for STEM courses, flexible spaces for student collaboration / project-based learning, a 3-court gym and fitness area for students and community use, proper separation of pedestrians and vehicle/bus traffic, and additional parking, a shared bus drop-off area between the middle school and Clarendon Elementary, energy-efficient systems and natural lighting, practice fields, and track. We've updated this graph here to, there used to be a key in the lower right, but we ultimately just embedded that information on the picture that you're seeing right now. So we have our visitor/staff parking and parent drop-off. The blue line indicates obviously the flow for traffic at parent drop-off at Clarendon. We have our bus flow right here for bus drop-off. And then you can see the existing middle school. Elementary schools. The proposed plan would also create age-appropriate spaces for 4-year-old kindergarten at the 5 traditional elementary schools and reconfigure Big Bend Elementary traffic flow to better separate students and vehicles. The estimated cost, $5 million. So here we have the recommended plan to replace Parkview and create age-appropriate spaces for 4K for $102.3 million, which is a 69-cent increase on the mill rate. So that's $69 for every $100,000 of a household's value. So the question is, would you support a $102.3 million referendum to fund the recommended plan? Approval would result in an annual tax increase of $69 per every $100,000 of property value. All right. Questions, concerns? Okay, I'll keep going. Potential high school project. There is a growing demand for elementary employees in the engineering, construction, and manufacturing fields. In an attempt to respond to this demand, the district used a portion of the 2016 referendum funding to improve the high school's technical education areas. Even with this investment, student interest in taking tech ed classes exceeds capacity. Last year, the district was only able to accommodate 75% of student course requests. The district's programming for physical education, athletics, and marching band practice exceeds capacity and is hampered due to seasonally poor weather and limited indoor space. Teams struggle to find indoor space when the weather makes outdoor practice impossible. This project would repurpose the small gym into a technical education shop area with more modern equipment and build a multi-purpose turf facility for both school and community use. Area 1, build a multi-purpose facility with a weights and fitness area. Area 2, renovate the existing south gym into technical education shop space. Area 3, renovate the existing auto shop area and expand it for woods, metals, and welding. Would you support expanding the plan by $22.7 million to fund the high school project as described above? Approval would result in an additional annual tax increase of $36 per year for every $100,000 of property value. All right. So from there's no changes that took place from this point forward. Is there any additional feedback or suggestions you'd like to see? If not, this is our survey.
I have a question if you know the answer. In the list of the things that the new middle school could potentially offer, that checklist, there isn't anything about the performing stage that we spent all that time talking about. Is there a reason that it was not listed as a potential positive for what we're trying to do here?
I can't say that we intentionally left it off, to be honest, Erica. I think tired eyes have read this about 100 times now, and us going through this here was exactly for that point right there. So I will take note.
We will have Clint add that in, or I'm sorry, Bill add that into the survey under the Parkview project.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
Do you think it's important, it's fine, okay, but do you think it's important that that little paragraph that you said, Cherry, this is what it was, that we also, does the statement hire, let me see it.
Sorry, give me 1 second to find
Academic
it. There we go.
Oh, okay. So does the statement higher level course offerings cover the fact that we have discussed many times how the curriculum, that we're only one of 50, this all can't go in there. I'm just telling you the point that we're like only one of 50 left in the state that are not doing 6 through 8, and that curriculum is based on a 6 through 8 thing. Does that one sentence cover that so that our taxpayers know how important that shift in educational, the way, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's all. I mean, it is fine, but if we're trying to educate the community, that is also part of why we're doing it, to come in alignment with the current way of educating students. And
Yes, so we, when we get past the survey and start doing community presentations, we will be definitely touching on those points. I would say our team, Tom, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, probably spent somewhere between a half hour and 45 minutes taking the feedback that you gave us last month and trying to find the best way to word it into the survey. Where does it fit and how does it get built in here? And as it
it's much better than it was. So
right, as it pertains to what your question was, last time we saw this, we tried to capture what does it mean to move the 6th grade to the middle school. And so that took a fair amount of wordsmithing and discussion among the team. And this is the best that we could come up with without making it an 8-sentence paragraph that we might lose the average, voter who's looking at it and not necessarily that they can't make sense of it, but just eventually start to say, this is enough, and I really don't care then what the question is. We tried to be as succinct as we possibly could for the person reading the survey.
what does anybody else think? I'm curious.
Well, I guess the only thing, again, I'm not going to die on this hill. We offer our 6th grade students higher level course offerings by busing them back and forth. Our 6th graders, when Rachel had mentioned our 6th graders start early, it's because they go to the middle school for math and then they start early and then they come back to their school, so they have all this free time. I mean, again, doesn't really matter, but if we're talking about it, it'd be say something along the lines of, it would free up space at each elementary school and provide 6th grade students the necessary benefit of a middle school curriculum. I feel like that's succinct, and it's kind of just saying we have deemed it to be something necessary, which is why we're moving forward. So I like that word to just say that there's importance to this, not just higher level course offerings, because we're doing that and we can continue to do that. I would like to see something that speaks to the importance that we're placing on it. This is a necessary, but also benefit in their education. I'm not saying it has to be that. I'm saying that's what I quick wrote down right now, because we're missing the middle school curriculum piece by not having them there. Stephanie, is that correct? Because we went through those journals of middle school versus all the names. But if we were changing it again, which again, we don't have to, I'm not saying, but I think I'm hearing what you're saying and agreeing with you, and that would be how I'm feeling that is maybe lacking.
And I agree with you that you don't want to put too many words so that you, whatever, but it is a core value.
We appreciate you mentioning that because, I mean, again, the more eyes that take a look at it, the better. We are meeting tomorrow afternoon to take any feedback that we had tonight so that we can put that in there. So we'll take that suggestion, Erica, back, work it through, see if that language fits better. I'll talk to Stephanie tomorrow to see if it captures kind of curricularly what we're trying to do, and then have that added into the survey to replace the higher level course offerings piece.
Anybody else? Moving on, Tom?
Okay, thanks, everybody. Just a quick update, we had in the emergency purchase that we had to make, we bought new speakers for our stadium at the home game on week 2 of the season. I can't recall the date off the top of my head. It was in August. We had a situation where some of our speakers started to malfunction. There was a smell of smoke. Enough said, we replaced them quickly. So any one of our policies there, I forget which one off the top of my head, states that any emergency purchase exceeding $5,000 will be reported to the relevant committee as soon as possible. So we had a quote to rebuild 2 speakers for a cost of $10,000 or replace all 4 for $13,000. So we replaced all 4 and had next day service. So just reporting back on that.
Are these louder? 'Cause
How do they sound?
every time
Yeah,
I've
we
been
went
to
from
stadium-
12-inch speakers to 15, so yes.
Oh, perfect.
I'll have to come listen because you couldn't hear a thing though.
We'll,
Yeah.
we'll
No,
just
I
turn
was
it up
very
for you, Cherry,
surprised
so
at
you
the
can hear
poor
it.
sound quality at the football game, so
When I came to watch the dancers, it was like, this is really bad.
it was kind of like the teacher on Charlie Brown. You couldn't really tell. what
Yeah.
they were saying.
Yeah, like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, student services topics, GED 02, update for the Board of Education. New face in front of us. Welcome.
Got to bring some fresh blood every now and then. All right, so this is Jody Jonas. Jody runs our GED 02 program at the high school, and so most of you guys weren't on the board when we first started our program. I think Cherry and Erica and Vito, how long have you been with us?
Greg would be before me.
This was before you?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
So I thought this would be a great opportunity for an update and then just an opportunity for you guys to ask any questions. It's an alternative pathway that is offered at the high school for some of our students, and it's been pretty successful for us. So kudos to Jody, and I'm going to let her do the bragging and the clicking. Hopefully it will work for her. So, and speak into the microphone.
Hi, Jody.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. As Christine said, I'm Jody Jonas. I teach the alternative education program, specifically GED Option 2 at the high school. What is the GED program Option 2? It really is just, it's a program that uses the GED test battery to measure proficiency in the 4 core subjects. We also, as a district, require additional things for the kids to do in order to finish the program and receive their diploma. Students will receive an actual diploma in June if they complete all the requirements. If they finish ahead of time, they actually can get their transcripts and use those for employers or colleges or universities to show their completion. Statewide, the top 5 common accomplishments and strengths that were noted at DPI was there's an 80 to 100% graduation rate. Here at Mukwonago, since we started the program in 2021, we have a 100% graduation rate. It helps students graduate with their peers. It's a greater opportunity for credit recovery in the classroom. Students are more successful in earning their diploma, and there's a high attendance rate. So the students are there every day. Now click this button. This one? Okay. GED by the numbers. I won't read the entire graphic to you, but just the highlights for me was 150,000 students get their GED in the US each year. The 4 core test subjects are math, English, science, and social studies, and accepted by virtually all colleges, universities, and employers. At Mukwonago, we've had 43 students graduate since the program started in 2021. 6 of those students had IEPs, which is quite remarkable considering that the program is rigorous. We are able to apply for accommodations at WCTC for those kids that have IEPs. And I'm also able, as a special education teacher as well, to make modifications to some of the content so that they can be successful in the classroom. Sure.
She also broke it, I was just, can I have the mic?
Yeah.
She also broke it down by male and female because I was kind of curious to see if we would see a division between male and female, but it was actually like pretty even. So I thought that was an interesting piece of data also.
Agreed. So what does DPI require for us to have the kids enrolled in the program? Students need to be at least 17 years of age. They have to have a 9th grade reading level, which we assess at the high school. They need to be at least 1 year behind their peers, which means they start senior year with 21 credits or less. We have DPI strongly encourages us to make sure this program is voluntary. This isn't punitive or a punishment. So we want to make sure that kids know that this is a privilege. We have a formal meeting with them, their counselor, admin, their parents, as well as myself, and we go over all the requirements so they understand what they're getting into and there's no gray area about what's going on. They have to be in attendance 90% of the time. They, like any other high school student in the state, need a half a credit in health, personal finance, and need to pass the civics test. We have to have a minimum of 80% completion in order for our program to get renewed each year. And as I stated earlier, we have 100% so far, so we're doing well. Students are getting a traditional diploma and are participating in the same graduation ceremony as other high school graduates. I have to collect all this program data every year, and they send me a report that I have to verify all of this and turn it into them so that we're eligible to be renewed the following year. And again, as I mentioned, students with IEPs must not be excluded from the program. In addition to DPI requirements, what do we require as a district? We require that the students pass all 4 tests or have the required credits by the district in the core areas. They need to take a vocational APEX class, and APEX is our software that we use for credit recovery that we use throughout the school year as well as during summer. They need to work a minimum of 10 hours a week. They need to have a driver's license or state ID. They have to show that at WCTC to test. They need to participate in 10 hours of community service, prepare a senior capstone project, and share it with me. I do an exit interview with them when they share it with me. We also have consistent academic progress requirements, and I build resumes with them, cover letters, encourage them to apply to colleges, to jobs. I teach them how to write formal letters, formal emails, all that good stuff goes along with the program. They have to be completely active the whole time they're there.
Jody, can you give me a quick senior capstone?
So what that is it's a slideshow that says, what have you done in high school to become successful? What are you currently doing? What are your future plans? How is this program helping you?
Cool.
And then I try to circle back and collect data from them after to see what they're doing after high school, which I'll talk about that at the end a little bit. I have some examples. So what do the scores and transcripts mean? So they need a 145 to pass a GED test at WCTC. But the great thing about it is if they get a higher score, they can have, if they're college ready or college ready plus, they can actually earn credits before they attend college, get waivers for placement testing, or be placed in higher classes when they decide to go to school if they decide to go that path. People often ask me too, what do the transcripts look like? If they're taking an alternative path, does that show up on their transcripts? This is really important, right? Because that's what everybody sees. They do show up on the transcripts as their GED scores or their proficiency, but like I said earlier, virtually all employers, colleges, universities accept that pathway, so there's no problem there. Types of students that I serve, that are served by this program, honestly, I've probably had every one of these pertain to one or more of my students. That doesn't mean that they are not academically successful students. They just have had some obstacles in their lives and they need an alternative pathway. They need a smaller environment, they need a familial feel, They need to have a trusting relationship with their teacher in order to be successful. So all of those things, though have been obstacles before, do not hinder them from being academically successful. And just some student highlights. Some of my current students, I have one student right now who wants to be a welder. He is working at Wisconsin Metal Parts. He has taken all the welding classes at the high school, but he has pretty severe ADHD and cannot focus and get that diploma the traditional path. So he's working with me to earn that diploma, and once he does, he'll get on-the-job training at his job and be able to become an actual welder once the program is complete. I have two other students that want to be medical assistants. Both plan on attending CTC or Hertzing. Their goal is to get high enough scores on their tests so that they can either test out, get credit, or avoid some of those placement tests. So they're working really hard right now to get those high scores. I have another kiddo that wants to be a kindergarten teacher, and she, as part of her community service, I actually make them set up their own community service. I don't do that for them. It's a good experience. She reached out to her former kindergarten teacher at Big Bend Elementary and asked if she could do volunteer hours. So she started that last week and is now working with her former teacher and kind of getting that on-the-job experience and getting a lot of great kudos from those other teachers that are there. They've actually said to her once she completes the program, she can come and be an aide while she goes to college to get her teaching license. So that was great. And then I have two students from previous years. Two are at UWM studying IT. I had a student with chronic truancy last year that moved to Milwaukee and refused to come back to the high school. So we called her and explained this program, and not only did she get her diploma, but she got a college-ready score on one of the tests, so we were really proud of her. I have another student who had an IEP who is working at an auto shop, and the requirement for him to go on to a supervisor role was to get his diploma, and he's now in a supervisor position at his auto shop. And ironically enough, this weekend, I ran into two students Saturday when I was out to dinner that I hadn't seen since the program ended. One of them got a job working at Northwestern Mutual with full benefits, and the other one's working at Woodman's third shift full benefits, and they're very, very happy about that. So I was excited for them. And just on a final note, I work with DPI a lot. I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of inquiries because it's kind of a new program and I want to know the best way to run it. And one of the things that stood out to me was that she said educators should not be roadblocks to students that have plans to be valuable community members. We really need to find alternative pathways, smaller environments, just a better way to serve our students. And I couldn't agree more. Any questions?
Awesome job, Jody.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Awesome job, for sure.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Jody. So I can't reiterate enough that Jody's passion for the kids that she works with is incredible. So she is a great asset to our high school and to the kids that she gets to work with every day. So I'm glad she was here tonight.
Hey, nice job, Jody.
She's
Good job, Jody.
contagious. Her excitement is. So
You can bring her around more often, Christine,
Yeah.
right?
now we're going to talk about random drug testing.
Yeah.
Follow that, Jim Darren.
Yeah.
So I really did ask Jim to come tonight to give an update to the board to review random drug testing, just the process, and then to go over the results of the random drug testing process over the last 3 years. And so he is here to talk with as much enthusiasm about that right now.
All right, thanks for having me up here again. I realize that I think there was only maybe 3 board members on the board when we started this program. We are now in our 6th year of drug testing. So I've got just some slides that kind of talk about the history a little bit. It began in the 18-19 school year, and the purpose was really to foster a safe learning environment, help students make healthy choices, assist them in maximizing both their academic potential as well as their athletic and extracurricular potential, and most important, I think, is to identify those users early rather than late. We really based our program on other schools in the area. There may be other schools in our area that do drug testing such as we do, but we really based it on Muskego, Arrowhead, Oconomowoc, and Pewaukee that have done it for quite a few years before us. To be eligible for testing, It is really all those students that are covered by our athletic and our activity code, not just athletics, but also students who were selected, voted on, or tried out for leadership positions within our school, or those that just that represent Mukwonago at some sort of competition. So it's not every person that is in an activity. And the example I like to give is we have a Spanish club at our school. Kids can come and go as they please to Spanish club, and some kids will maybe come for one meeting, some kids will come for all of the meetings. I don't know if they have an executive board of the Spanish club, but if they did have an executive board that was selected by teachers or selected by their fellow students, maybe they have a president and a vice president, which a lot of our clubs have. Those people would be subject to this testing policy, but not necessarily those kids that maybe only come to a handful of the meetings. And then all kids that park on campus are also part of our testing program. You see the list of items that we test for. It's your standard drug testing. And then I just wanted to go a little bit through the process. So we use an outside agency. We use ProHealth for our testing process and also for giving us the random students to test. We give them a list of student ID numbers, no other identifying numbers whatsoever, and they put it into a random generated program that gives us a list. We tell them that we're going to test about 10 kids a month, and so they send us a list of just student ID numbers, 10 kids, and then 10 alternates if those 10 kids are not available. And then we look up the student ID numbers in our system and have a list for a monthly drug test. Students, once they are tested, they stay in the system. So we've had, every year we get a few kids that are tested more than once, but they stay in our system. You know, it's not as if they're done random drug testing if they have a drug test. The testing is done by ProHealth. We use a conference room that has a bathroom inside our counseling center, and ProHealth uses all the correct testing protocols. It is a urine sample. And the first thing that they do when they come in there is they ready the bathroom, so they tape off the faucet so that you cannot dilute your sample or anything like that. And then we start calling down the students on our list. We typically go through the list because it does take a few hours to go through, and so there's a system for pulling kids. If there's kids in study halls and things like that, we will make sure that we get them, look at their schedule, and see if maybe the next hour would be better off for them to come in. We do notify the parents right away when we pull the kids down. As I tell the kids, we're going to be giving your parents a call because we don't want you sitting home at night and they say, how was your day? And you surprise them with the words, I got drug tested today. And then when they're done, the students are simply sent back to class. We don't really make a big deal out of it. In fact, we ask them to kind of keep the news quiet, to stay off of social media, screaming that I got drug tested at school today and that kind of thing, just so that we can get through the process. There are a number of kids that come down and cannot produce on demand, and so there is an opportunity for them to drink some water. There is a capacity of how much water they can have. They can't drink 48 ounces of water because it dilutes the sample. I think it's 16 ounces is the maximum that they can have. Typically, kids have a bottle of water and they're good to go. If a student is absent, then we do pull from the alternative list. Typically, once that process is done, we will receive the results in about 7 to 10 days after the test. And for those students that are negative, we will get a computer printout, fold it up, calm down, and just give them an envelope with their test results. It's not super complicated. For those students that do test positive, they do not, we don't know about it until a physician has contacted home and talked to the parents, because a number of medications that students are on today will get flagged in the testing process. And so they'll talk through the parents. They have a prescription for this or a prescription for this that the students are taking. Only after the doctor talks to the family will then we take the results, or we get notification that there is a positive result, and then we'll take the appropriate steps. Let's see. Our data from the last 3 years, again, right about 90 tests per year, about 10 a month or so. There were some years where we did not get through 10, and that typically is because the ProHealth people have a pretty tight timeline for when they're in the building, typically about 3 hours or so. Sometimes they can stay later to get a test, all 10 tested complete. Sometimes they simply can't. If we run into a lot of kids that need water, we're going to run behind. So that's why you see some years that we did not reach 90 tests. And there you see the positives and what they tested for, or tested positive for. It is not cheap, about $8,000 a year. The tests are relatively inexpensive, only $60 a test. But there are some other administrative costs, a random number generator, and the cost of the personnel. So all told, about $8,000 a year to run this program. There are a few other things that we do. We do have some random breathalyzers at certain events, especially our bigger events, sporting events, and dances. I'm happy to report that in the 5 years, 6 years that we have done random breathalyzers, we've had one positive, and that was at a dance last year. I truly believe when kids know there's going to be a random breathalyzer at a football game, they know not to come intoxicated. For our randomness, we simply have a different color plastic poker chips in a bag, and if you pull a red one, you're good to go. If you pull a blue one, you're going to go off to the side and do a random breathalyzer. It's not like it's an airborne breathalyzer, not like the police have with the tube that you have to blow in. We also have used the canine drug dogs in the past, typically twice a year, that search our locker areas, both the PE locker room, our lockers in the hallways, and then our parking lots. We are trying to increase the frequency of that, but that is all dependent on the availability of the Waukesha County drug dogs. And for the last few years, they have not been available. And so that's why we've done it. We typically set it up months in advance, and sometimes when we set it up and say, can you come on this day, they unfortunately have better things to do with their time and don't make it. I think that's it. What questions do you have for me?
Okay, so I'm looking at what you test for and what the test results were, and I'm looking at the cost, and I'm wondering, do the kids know it's 10 a month? Do the kids know, can you cut it down to 5 a month and cut the cost in half? Because there's no hard drugs here. So obviously the kids that you're pulling from, which are the kids in the clubs and whatever, not that, I'm just wondering if it's worth it. That's my comment.
I will say this, and so I gave a similar presentation to a group of students when we started this. And the last slide on the presentation just had the number 7 on it. and I explained to them what the number 7 meant. So this was back in 2000, probably the fall of 2018, might have even been the spring of 2018 before the program started. So at that point, I had been the high school principal for 6 years. And we had, not at the high school level, but we had 7 overdose deaths among MHS graduates after they had graduated, which at the time, and it still is, it's an epidemic right now across all kinds of, whether it's rural, urban. But they got out of high school, they suddenly had a lot of freedom, and a lot of them were recent college graduates that suddenly had a lot of money. And I remember for a long time getting that email or that phone call that this kid who was a graduate of this this year had died from a drug overdose, and sending out those emails. So thankfully, it has been a while since I've had to share that kind of terrible news. But I say that because I can't tell you if well, I can tell you this. In talking with students and talking with parents, I think the drug testing program has a huge deterrent, especially among our athletes and especially among people that have leadership capabilities in the school, because they know that at any time their number can be pulled.
And that's why I'm saying, can we cut back?
Yeah.
Not eliminate, but cut back. Do they know how many?
They don't. And
And so it would be like you had the whole program in place,
Yeah.
but you just wouldn't be spending as much. And for what? Because we do have a problem, but obviously this isn't finding the kids that have it.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
Well, my question, Craig, you have to call on people.
Erica.
Okay, my
both.
question is sort of opposite, actually, because I've had parents come to me and say, it's a deterrent, it works, but we need more. So I feel like I know the answer to this already, and I think there's legality, so I'm hoping you have the answer. I have parents say, why can we not test all of the athletes? Because the ones that might need to get pulled are the ones not getting pulled, and the ones getting pulled multiple times are the ones, do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many anecdotal stories, like, but my child is getting what they're getting from another athletic friend, so can we not just quick test them all? And I'm like, I think it's illegal, but I don't know why. Is that true? Or what's the answer, other than it's maybe very costly?
We could test everybody who gets a privilege at school, not the student body who has a right to education, but you could make drug testing part of a program. I think one of the reasons why it isn't is because the cost becomes prohibitive.
So it's not a legal issue, it's potentially financial.
It would be a financial issue to test every athlete, everybody in the choir, everybody in the band.
Yeah.
But I will say this, that way too much of the expenditures that we spend on this is not done on testing themselves. And so talking with other schools, they've discovered one way to cut the cost, which I still need to investigate a little bit more, but if we can cut the non-testing cost, I would absolutely be in favor of bumping up the number of kids that we test a month.
Vito.
Yeah, it reminds me of a saying I heard a buddy of mine used to say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So if it's in the budget and we have it, we might as well if it's having a positive effect. I had a question though, that nicotine was on the list, and just because I'm curious, if we were to test and nicotine were to come up and then they call the parent and the parent's like, I'm okay with it, do we have it?
Yeah, and I can't say that has come up. Certainly, a number of parents are aware that their kid is using, especially nicotine. The one interesting part of this is that there are no consequences for students who are 18 and test positive for nicotine other than a athletic or activity code violation. So if a student parks on campus, is 18 during their senior year, takes a drug test, and tests positive for nicotine, there's no consequences for them.
But if a kid was 17 and the parent was okay with it, would we do anything about that? Are we gonna die on that hill, or is that something we're like, all right, whatever your parents are fine with it, we don't care?
No, I still, and believe me, when we do have positives, the first call that we do is we call the parents and say, would you like some information? Do you need some? Talk to, not in years past, it's been our school counselor. This year it'll be our AODA coordinator, and talking with her about, do you need some resources? But the consequences are still there for us.
Crosby.
What percentage of our students are eligible to be tested?
So each year, and it varies year to year, but it's about 1,000 to 1,100-ish of our students are kind of on our list. So divided by 1,600, 5/8. Sorry, you have to do the percent. I'm a social studies teacher at heart.
0.625, yeah.
Well, I guess my bigger concern is, are we missing? Is that good? Are we missing maybe our most highest risk group because they have nothing to lose?
Yeah, and if, you know, and we preach this, and you guys preach this as well. You know, be involved in things outside of just coming to school from 7:30 until 2:45, and that's what gets you on the drug testing list, is when you participate in those things. And I don't want to make a generality, but I would probably say those students that are not involved in anything, club, athletics, anything outside of the normal school hours, may be a little bit higher risk.
So how do we address that?
Christine has an idea.
That's like a total pet. You're right. It's really hard to get those 400 kids that aren't involved in anything. And students have rights, and so we can't drug test a student who isn't a parking permit holder or who isn't in a club or activity or an athletic event. So I guess what I would say is that the more we can inform parents, and the more, like, going on record, you can go on Amazon, you can buy your dipstick marijuana test, your cannabis test, your urine test for nicotine. Like, parents can do all of those things. I would highly encourage, like, us educating our parents as much as we can early on, providing as much information as we can through our coordinators. We can't, like, once they sign the consent for random drug testing, it's valid for all 4 years. So if we can try to get our kids into something early, then they're in the pool. But if they never get engaged, we can't get them in the pool.
Could parents simply opt in?
Yes, they can, and they have.
Okay.
Yes, they can.
I just kind of have an issue with, we're kind of punishing the kids who are involved in things. And I understand that there's a prevention part of this, but it just really kind of feels like we're punishing the kids who participate in activities.
But I get that sentiment. That, like, we are the final part of this is the consequences. I know for the kids, they're going to think, oh my gosh, I lose part of my sports season or whatever. For us, first and foremost, it is trying to get them not to start in the first place, and using this to say, you know, no, I can't go to that party. I can't do this. I may be tested next week, and that is the biggest part of this. But yeah, we do have some information that we do during advisories on drug and alcohol abuse. We have sent home some things to parents, and pictures of things that we have confiscated off students to make sure that parents know what the tools of drug use look like right now, because they have changed dramatically in the last 5 years. Yeah. And in fact, we've last year during one of our PD days, we spread a whole bunch of things that we had confiscated off of students and put it in one of our conference rooms and had the teachers just walk around the room, and they were flabbergasted. They had no idea, you know, because a lot of these things don't look anything close to what people would say was drug paraphernalia even 10 years ago.
Do we have any national data that shows that drug testing works in schools as a deterrent? Because, I mean, this was a problem when I was in high school, and that was pre-drug testing
Sure.
in schools and things like that, and kids just didn't care. And you were either a rule follower or you weren't. So there's got to be national data at this point that supports doing this.
Yeah, we can get some national data on that and bring it back to you.
Jake?
So we test monthly,
Mhm.
and if someone's absent, we just test an alternate. How do we decide when we test? Is that random? Or
It
do we
is,
make the second
yeah,
Tuesday
it's
of every
random, and it's me.
Sorry, gonna be sick next Tuesday, guys.
Yeah,
Said
no.
it many times coming up.
There's about 3 people in the building that know when those dates are, and actually two people in the building that know when all the dates are. Me and one of our secretaries has got to make sure that the conference room with the bathroom in counseling is not being occupied by something else.
Okay.
Yep. And they are random, and a lot of it is. It really can be any day of the week. It can be at the beginning of the month, the end of the month. I mean, some months we will test at the end of the month and then test right away 2 weeks later at the beginning of the next month. So it's random. A lot of it has to do with when pro healthcare is available to come out as well.
Got it, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Just real quickly, Tom just mentioned he's going to talk to the clinic about this testing, where it could potentially help us address the cost of administering the tests. So we'll look at our own health clinic to see if they can assist us with this.
And 3 people know. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate getting the time to talk with you all tonight.
Rachel? Hires, retirements, and resignations. How's your first month been, Rachel?
It has been a whirlwind, but a really good whirlwind, so thanks for asking. All right, I'm going to do better this time. Last time I had some curveballs thrown at me. So we have no resignations, no retirements, but we offered contracts to several people. So Adam Jost is a new technical education teacher at Mukwonago High School. He's replacing Ryan Germain. We are offering a contract to Caitlin DeGuel. She is currently serving as a math interventionist over at Section, but she will be moving into instructional coach position at Section. And then we have several Title I contracts that have gone out, and Title I teachers work alongside of our interventionists, serving some of our most striving students. We have Diane Pollock, who is going to be at Eagleville and Prairie View. Carla Mogdlin, who's also going to be at Eagleville and Prairie View. Amanda Turka, who is at Clarendon. Sarah Schmidt, who's at Clarendon and then St. John's. Lindsay Johnson, who's at Big Bend. And then Bree Parent, who is at Big Bend and St. Joe's. Questions that you have for me?
I have one, sorry.
That's okay.
Why are we doing, I mean, I just don't remember ever having this whole list of Title I teachers. Is it the season, you know what I'm saying, all at one time?
Sure. So Title I teachers are hired after the school year begins based on title funding that comes. We get that allocation in the summer, and so those hires come right around this time. Ben Casau oversees the title funding, and so that's when staffing takes place. So it is typical that we have these hires at this time of year.
Have they started?
Some of them, if they were former employees, are already up and running. If they worked for us, last year. Some of them, if they, just based on when they get their health screening done, have not yet started. So some of them, yes, some of them are waiting on just some of their onboarding paperwork.
So are we making motions and approvals on these? Okay, I will make a motion to approve these appointments.
Second.
Any more discussion?
If we didn't make a motion, would they still be starting?
I've always wondered that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I don't get the question.
You could, if the board was objected to one of these,
No, I'm
or
not,
all
like,
of them.
if we didn't make the motion,
They
would they
would-
still start?
No,
They wouldn't?
no.
Okay. I was just curious, because it's an action item, and we're in a committee meeting, so now I know.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion, we go into executive session.
I'll second.
Roll call, please, Sharon.
Craig, tell us quick first.
Crosby?
Yes.
Erica?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Gail?